Middlekauff! Hey!
Oh, looking good today. Blue Crew. Buck Mason, baby, for me. Down in the description below. What's up?
You feel like hoodies are really in right now? I feel like older people wearing them.
So in. Golf. Once they hit the golf course, you know everybody's doing it.
But in all seriousness, like, what do you think
Yeah.
they're just more comfortable now than ever?
Why do I think they're in?
I saw Coward was interviewing Heward, the dad of the young
Damon?
quarterback, and I mean he had a nice hoodie. It just
Damon,
feels like
sharp guy too.
yeah,
Interesting
I
guy.
mean, just feels just a lot of people are wearing. Are there just higher end hoodies out now?
Yeah, I mean you're wearing them. I'm wearing one.
Yeah.
We're wearing different hoodies, but I would say they're both higher end hoodies.
Yeah.
I think it. I think the thing the hoodie gives you is the little hand pocket in the front is a nice little. I think people like that. A, because it's nice for the hands, and B, if you got a little belly, it can have a little bit of a belly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it more than the crew neck, even though I like a crew neck too.
Crew neck never really worked on me. I'll be honest.
Yeah, they're not always as flat. You're right. It doesn't make sense that it should not be flattering when a hoodie is a little more flattering, but there's something about it that's
Do
just.
you
a little
remember
off.
when we were kids, and if you like sent in, you got your Sports Illustrated magazine, and you filled out this thing, they would send you like a sweatshirt, but the crew neck sweatshirt, and just say Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, yeah.
I just remember like I was being so excited,
The
and then I
gray.
put it on. It just made my body look weird.
It was a XXX as part of the problem. I think that they sent you.
People won't ever realize you young kids listening to this Sports Illustrated. That was like
Oh my god.
it was like CBS or something. I mean, they were a big freaking deal in the 90s.
So when I was a kid, I had this like a piano bench. You know, a piano bench. It's a bench, but it opened the seat itself opens up. You put like the piano music in it. We didn't have a piano, but we just had that kind of bench, and I used it as like a desk. Well, I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I kept all my Sports Illustrateds in that desk. You would
You
open
run
it
out
up.
of room.
All the SIs were in there. I mean, not my full collection, but I still have a box that has them in there, so I kept quite a few. I used to. This is embarrassing, but we're here to share. It's always about make yourself look good. I would pick that thing up. It was big. It's like you sit on it the length of a piano
I know.
keyboard.
We have my mom has a piano at her house. I know what the bench looks like.
I would pick that thing up. I would take it into the bathroom with me. I'd put it down in front of the toilet. I would open it up. I'd sit on the toilet. I'd open it up. I'd pull out an SI. I'd close the thing down, and I'd just go through SI. My mom has a photo of me asleep, fell asleep, SI under me, head, arms on the bench, on the toilet.
Taking a shit.
Well, I mean, hanging out, more like it.
I don't think I started reading on the toilet probably till like junior high. And then by then I remember being in college, you'd be like, you go in there, this is pre-iPhone.
Yeah.
Like you don't have anything to read. You grab like the shampoo just to read the shampoo. You just need something to read. It's like everyone has their phone or their iPad or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you went in there empty-handed and you said that and you realized I had no material.
I know. That's why you leave something like 500 great alpha quotes.
Alpha quotes, yeah.
Alpha quotes.
So worst case scenario, you can just rattle off alpha quotes.
Those are much more efficient BMs without your phone. You're just like, well, I got no reason to hang in here.
I do know this without a doubt. If there'll probably be remodel a house one day, but if you build a house from scratch, television's in definitely the shower. When I say TV, it could just be like iPad size, so it's like boom. Sometimes like if your workout schedule goes around or you're sweaty or you just need to take a shower around something you want to watch, you never would actually have to miss something. So like sometimes I'll save it till halftime or whatever. Boom, you can just go in like the first quarter of a game and it's still on in there and you get out, you don't miss a thing.
True. I will say having to get back to the TV is when I take the most efficient. I'm not wasting any water if there's a game I'm getting back to, right? That's like a 3.5 minute shower.
But what if I told you like iPad Pro level size right there?
Yeah.
It's just going. You might take 20-minute shower. You're like,
right.
Yeah, this is great.
I know. I know. Hey, coming up on Sunday's show, we will have our latest conversation with Greg Papa. And I must say, John, I'm pretty sure it's the best conversation with Greg Papa we've ever had. Do we argue about whether or not the Niners should extend Jimmy Garoppolo or cut Jimmy Garoppolo or everything in between that? Yes, we do. I would say we had a very good conversation with Greg about that among other things. I mean, how many great things? A Lakers story that I can only pray is in the Laker movie, but it's unbelievable. What else do we talk about with Pop? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, also just life. A lot of Jimmy.
A lot of Jimmy, a lot of Trey, but he actually had he actually has a team. Maybe I'll put the clip out of this on Friday or something ahead of time. Papa suggested a team that the Niners could trade Jimmy Garoppolo to that you and I were not thinking of, that no one's thinking of right now. And he actually made quite a bit of sense. So we go through that with him.
Maybe Al Davis taught him just think way outside the box, and then you'll actually be the smartest guy in the room.
Just allow your mind to always be open.
Yeah.
Never think that anything is impossible. Yeah. We're going to get to some mailbag questions at the end of this pod, but we'll need some fresh ones for next week. So go to iTunes if you're listening if you're listening to the podcast on Apple Music, you're already there. If you're watching it on YouTube, the link to our podcast is down in the description. And we'd appreciate if you like this video too and subscribe to our channel. But leave us a review. We'll get to some today. We have a 3-star review that we'll read today at the end of the show in our mailbag. We always love a 5-star, but just because you give us 3 doesn't mean we take everything in consideration. I think we can rectify the situation. And in that review, just leave us a question. Leave us a question. Maybe tell us your favorite bar if you want. All that kind of stuff. Well, not all that kind of stuff. Those specific things. That's how you get in the Haberman and Middlekauff mailbag. And we'll fire that bad boy up at the end of the show today.
Do it.
Can we rapid fire a few things? We actually had some success with Greg hitting some hypotheticals early, but okay. You have tickets to Eric Church's concert on Saturday, and Eric Church decides to cancel the concert so he can go to Duke, North Carolina, because he's a big Carolina fan. Are you pissed at him if you're in the boat? Some people are like taking days off work, had hotel rooms, 5-hour drives. Eric Church says, I'm out, John. Do you understand, or would you be pissed?
Yeah, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it because I do know some people that, will travel places to see people. I see people when they come to me.
Right.
So it's never, I know, they canceled the, if you're a Packer fan and it was like an open practice and you're like, I came out for, August 36th. Yeah, I can't keep track of that mindset because I can't relate to it. So, no, I completely understand. The guy's from Carolina. He's clearly a diehard North Carolina fan. They're playing Coach K. I think that has to add to it.
I think it's the whole thing, right? If they're playing Houston, is he doing it? Maybe, but this I get a little more.
It's in New Orleans, so it's a pretty good time. I mean, are people really mad at him, you feel?
I don't know if people, quote unquote, the internet is or not. I just saw a screenshot of a bunch of Facebook comments from the story of people who were going. They're like, one person, I took days off work, a month in advance to make this trip, 5-hour trip with my husband, blah, 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 that type of thing. So yeah, I'm sure people are upset. I have no problem with people being upset, but I do kind of get it. I like it from his perspective. I do understand doing it.
And I do understand if you are that person that was flying in or traveling, it sucks.
Should be pissed at yourself for actually wanting to go see Eric Church, says the comment. I have a playlist on Pandora that's only Eric Church live. There's some of the same song multiple times on it because it'll be like Eric Church live in Carolina, Eric Church live in Austin. And it's just a different version of the song. But
I'm a big country music guy, so I don't relate to people that don't like country music. Though I understand, because I like all music. To me, if you're good at music, I can fuck with you. I can listen to your stuff, whether it's R&B, rap, rock, country, whatever. But clearly, some of the city elites don't like country music. I would say this about Eric Church, just because when you grow up in the city,
elites.
Well, I just think you go to San Francisco, downtown San Francisco, or downtown New York. For the most part, country music is not going to be a top genre. Where when you grow up like Davis, Sacramento, country music's much bigger in that area. I would just say per capita.
Yeah.
But my point about Eric Church is he's kind of a unique country guy. He has a lot of stuff that's much closer to kind of rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, he's just a musician. And here's the other thing about Eric Church. Eric Church smokes a lot of weed. Eric Church gets high a lot. To me, Eric Church is I don't even know the right comp. Would be grunge music sublime or something. He's kind of a unique. Wouldn't you say he's a unique country music guy?
I mean, yeah, I would say that.
I
say
wouldn't
that.
consider him. I guess my point is like Alan Jackson or George Strait.
No.
You know?
It's not that. Which is usually when people say I don't like country, that's what they're talking about. Like,
Well, yeah,
wait down yonder on the Chattahoochee.
Yeah. See, I like that stuff, but
I
understand
love that
people don't
song,
like
but I get the difference. Yeah.
But I would say this, like, this is why I think Kenny Chesney's so popular. Kenny Chesney is a country music artist, but he's got like a huge reggae side to him. You know, like, you can just chill to Kenny Chesney.
Yeah.
He's
beach
got
music.
when I say reggae side, I mean like the reggae version of country, right?
What was the guy? Yeah. Who was the guy? I had a couple of his albums along, like Ben Johnson or
Ben Harper.
Ben Harper. No, there was another guy like Ben Harper, a little before Ben Harper.
Jack Johnson.
Bubbly Toes or something. I used to listen to a lot of that guy.
You see, but you listen back, like, again, it's like everyone I knew that
Now,
got high,
I
they
could-
listened
yeah,
to it.
I
It's,
couldn't
you know, the
listen to
guy's a surfer. He's like buddies with Kelly Slater. I get it.
There's actually a great Zach on the stream says he's from Charlotte. I have no issue with him canceling. He has a lot of the live songs from Charlotte on this playlist I have, and he talks in, it's live, so he's talking like, man, I always love coming back home, that type of thing. So
He's from Carolina.
yeah. All right, that's pretty. All right, how about this one? I saw this today. I'm not, you and I have talked plenty. We don't need to spend much time. Every podcast that you've listened to has a Will Smith, Chris Rock take. The one take I did appreciate today, I don't know if you saw this. Jim Carrey said that if he were Chris Rock, he'd sue Will Smith for $200 million because he's like, that clip is going to be everywhere forever. I'd sue his ass. I was like, you know what? I like that take. None of this like, no, I'm not going to, he's Will Smith. I'm going to let bygones be bygones. No, fuck that. I'm going to sue him for $200 million. Interesting take.
I do think the comedians are very, very offended that, like, of all the people that should understand what's going down are like the rich, famous people that have been involved in this stuff for a long time. Like, you can't hit us because at Jim Carrey's core, right, he's a crazy comedian.
The comedian.
He would probably say things in his heyday that would really piss people off. Like, and that's why they all politically, whatever, they all align, right? But they all have different views about life. But all comedians, whether you're Norm Macdonald, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, you see Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler won't stop tweeting his like support of Chris. They are very, very offended for the community. Like, this bullshit. Everything is off limits for your feelings. We're letting it fly. Like, what are we doing? I think part of it too is he did get hit really hard. It's like, it'd be one thing like a shove. I don't think it would be that big a deal. $200 million. I saw it went viral. He did a stand-up last night it would have been Thursday night.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of making
Wednesday
fun of
night.
himself. Yeah, he's like, what have you guys been up to? Again, he doesn't.
Okay,
I don't think Chris Rock cares that much.
Last one, John, for you. I don't know if you saw this. Well, I know you saw that Antonio Brown said that he doesn't understand why other receivers are getting paid, but he's not. And what was his other thing? He needs ankle surgery.
Misunderstood?
He needs ankle surgery, but he won't get it until a team signs him.
Yeah, what was the clip you sent me? He doesn't understand. He's not viewed like a normal player.
Yeah, why other guys are getting paid, but he doesn't understand what the difference between him and Christian Kirk is. Basically, He didn't say Christian Kirk. And then I saw this clip. Somebody asked Russell Westbrook last night, like, what if anything needs to change with their defense, and he said nothing. So my thought is, who is more delusional, Russ? Thinking nothing needs to change with his team. My barber was talking to me about this the other day. He's like, how does Russ not understand? Like, how they're like, he's not the old Russ, like, this is insane. Or AB doesn't understand why there's no difference between him and today's elite receivers.
I think it has to be Antonio Brown given. Listen, Russ has kind of been Russ now for a decade. Antonio Brown's last image for every single human being is him doing like basically cartwheels in the end zone in New York, waving goodbye to the crowd. That's just an all-time GIF. It's an all-time visual. It's an all-time clip. You talk about Jim Carrey saying that the Will Smith thing's never going away. I think that is synonymous with the NFL forever, right? Like there are certain videos that are just funny, right?
Yeah.
I would say in baseball, it's the one that hits Jose on the head, and bounces over.
Yep.
That occasionally just comes up in a blooper. That's something that our generation really, embraced were blooper reels. They don't really exist anymore. That was
now
a huge
there's
part of our
so
childhood.
many clips. It used to be like, here's the whole season. Here's 12 videos from the whole season. Now you get 12 videos in 8 minutes, right?
Yeah. So I would say that the Jose Canseco off the head, there's just this Antonio Brown visual of him doing these jumping jacks horizontally as he kind of goes down the row of the end zone. We'll never see anything quite like that guy.
No.
Because again, like part of when what's his name, Singletary kicked Vernon to the locker room, there was like negativity and anger surrounding that. Part of it is Antonio smiling as he got kicked. It's like fun, but it's really not fun.
As his team is in the Super Bowl race, it's not like they were just some piece of crap. Like the Niners were bad-ish.
Didn't Tom throw a game-winning touchdown in that game, if I remember correctly, against the Jets? They didn't lose.
No, they didn't lose. That's right. That's right. All right. Let's dive into things, John. First up, as reported by NFL reporter Richard Sherman, the rich get richer, lose Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame Von Miller, and gain future Hall of Fame B. Wags. The Ravens made a last-minute push, but the reigning champs were too good to pass up. Rap Sheet says that the Rams are giving Bobby Wagner a 5-year, $50 million contract that could be worth up to $65 million. After weeks of talking, Wagner lands back in the division as he wanted, which is an interesting little note there at the end. And again, $50 million. We have not, as we record this on Thursday afternoon, seen the real money. So we'll wait on that. But
let's take guesses on the guaranteed money. I'm going to go 21.5. So it's basically a 2-year deal.
So 2 years. Yeah, I mean.
And basically the first couple years of cap hits will be like $3 million.
Yeah. I think you're probably in the right range. I'm trying to think what I would guess if you hadn't just said that number.
Because don't you think they gave him essentially a multi-year deal more than
I think he definitely got 2 years. I think he definitely got 2 years. What was he? I mean, my first guess probably would have been like 19 and a half. But the Ravens allegedly were involved. But this has also taken a while, right? Like it's March 31st. When free agency started 2 weeks ago.
I mean, the Niners were sniffing around, but they weren't, once you start getting a multi-year deals, they're not doing that with him. One thing I'll give him and Sherm credit is they got rid of their agents. They do their own deals. That's why Sherm, obviously it's his buddy, but I think he takes a lot of pride. And you see, if you follow Sherm on Twitter, it's like every other tweet's like, who's this idiot's agent? After Florio tweets a contract, he's like, moron, who's representing this guy? Does Sherm want to start an agency? Which
he might. Where he takes no percentage? How does that work?
You can't run a business that way.
I'm going to start an agency for the guys without agents. Damn.
And we're going to charge 2% more than the agents, but we'll get you better deals.
Right. Richard's initial contract with the Niners was $7 total guaranteed. Was 3 for 27, but $7 million was total guaranteed. I'd say Bobby Wagner is viewed as a high at this. Now, Richard had a good year for the Niners, but obviously
coming off a torn Achilles. Remember, Richard was
torn Achilles. So yeah, I think 3 times that. But I'll say, you said what, 21? I'll say like 20. I was 19 and a half. That would have been my number. 19 and a half for Bobby Wagner. That'd be my number.
I was thinking, high teens, but I just rounded up. Maybe that, because that you said extra push. That gets you an extra.
Oh yeah, good call. Good call. He is from L.A. Right? Remember, played at Utah State. He's from Los Angeles, as Superfly 87 on the chat reminds us. But I think it is. We can talk about specifically Bobby. This is also representative. The Niners and the Rams are in an arms race, and they do things very differently. Right? Very differently.
Yeah. I think as a fan, and there's been some angst, it's fair to say, like, what are we doing? Why aren't we taking some more swings? I think a huge part of that is based on the team that you view now as your rival. And even when Seattle was, quote unquote, the Niners' rival, even though it was kind of a lopsided rivalry, they operated a lot like the Rams, wouldn't you say? Of just taking huge swings. I mean, they traded for Percy Harvin. They traded for Jimmy Graham. They traded for Jamal Adams. Like, they are, you could call them reckless at times, but I think you could say the same thing about the Rams a little bit. Like, they can be, it feels unfair to call them reckless, but reckless mixed with aggressive based on educated guesses.
They seem like they put a lot on the credit card, right?
And the Niners are just like, yeah, we'll just copy what Belichick did for 20 years. And people are like, God damn it, I can't wait. The difference, though, and this is always my pushback, and we'll get into Jed talking about Montana and Young. It's like, no one knows what you have at quarterback, so you need to stack your team as much as possible. This team is stacking themselves, and they did it last year with Von Miller, which I thought was like, damn, you're going to take a second and a third for Von Miller? It worked. That's one of the great win-win deals I've ever seen. He gave them basically a sack a game the last 4 games, including that Niner. Remember, he sacked Jimmy Garoppolo that led to the punt, and then Jimmy Garoppolo pulled the rabbit out of his ass, throwing it to Debo and Brandon Ayuk and getting him down the field somehow. But then Von Miller had a sack the next game, a sack the next game, a sack in the NFC Championship game, a sack in the Super Bowl. He was awesome. And then Von got $50 million guaranteed. It's one of the great win-win deals I've ever seen for a player. Denver benefited. Like, everyone feels great about it, right? The Broncos, the Rams, Denver Broncos, Von Miller, hell, the Bills. Like, everyone's feeling riding high. This one, Seattle guys, and part of it is like Richard, Bobby was there much longer. I think Russell. Animosity, I don't know where Russell stands, but clearly Bobby and Richard feel like, fuck you guys. You guys don't think we can play? I mean, Richard was open about it. I haven't watched Bobby talk that much. He always felt a little more low-key that way, like he didn't have a big chip on his shoulder. But again, I could be wrong because he's a Utah State guy that's became basically a Hall of Famer who really they chose him over everyone over time, right? They kept him years past everyone else. And saying he wanted to be in the division. Well, why do you want to be in the division? Because I know all the schemes, or it's because I want to play them twice. And I mean, he's going to the Super Bowl champs,
and being home might be a part of that too. But
I think if the Niners would have offered him a huge contract, he would have gone to one of those 2 teams, right? He wasn't sniffing around Arizona. Now Arizona doesn't necessarily need him. The Niners didn't either, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are always the easiest deals to talk about because, or the most not the easiest deals to talk about. These are the most common deals that get people worked up. I'd say it's a very baseball type situation, right? Where baseball for so many years now, hardly anyone gets paid, but for so many years you'd pay a guy way too much money when he was like 32, and that would be the big conversation a whole offseason, right? And then at the end of the day, that guy within 3 years was overpaid. The difference is in football, you can get out of contracts. But those are always the easiest free agents to talk about, are the biggest name free agents.
Bryce Harper, 13 years, $330 million.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I would even say Bryce is younger than Bobby was. Yeah. Or
you
Bryce
see the
was
highlights
younger
going
than Bobby.
viral right now. Bryce Harper's hitting moonshots.
Well, Bryce been good. I guess the other thing. So
Pujols probably a good example, right? He was like 32, and they gave him a 10-year deal, and it was a disaster.
I mean, how is he on the Cardinals? I guess the DH is. That guy hasn't been able to run for. I mean, as long as a long time.
Well, he looks like Alex Mack now. He's huge.
Alex Mack, yeah.
Yeah, Alex Mack. Like he's an O-lineman.
Well, Alex Mack is more athletic than Albert Pujols. It's not even close.
You would take him down first baseline over Albert Pujols?
Sure. Without a question. Alex Mack might get to second before Albert gets to first.
Would you take Jalen Ramsey or Emmanuel Mosley backpedal around the bases over Albert Pujols running forward?
Yes. I would.
I would too.
As long as they don't have to hit the bag.
Ramsey backpedal over Posey.
No.
Straight.
I bet Posey's a little faster than you think.
Looks slow on TV though.
Yeah. But, this is the kind of deal where we could analyze how much better it makes them. But in terms of the actual, I think it makes them better. That's part of this. Bobby Wagner doesn't suck. Now, Bobby Wagner's not at his peak. But the problem with adding a Bobby Wagner is not necessarily, are you adding a good player or are you not? It's clear you're adding a good player. It's just those types of players can sometimes be cost prohibitive for teams. And the Rams again, we don't know what the number is. The Rams, things don't seem cost prohibitive for them. Now, the other part is they're in LA. They just won a championship. They got Aaron Donald. They got Matthew Stafford. They're it's an attractive place to go if you're a guy like Bobby Wagner.
I mean, they've signed 2 pretty big name free agents. Like Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner are 2 pretty big name guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that's played fantasy football knows who Allen Robinson is. If you just watch football, you know who Bobby Wagner is. I mean, the Niners did by a corner, but it's weird. Even though he's coming from a big-time team, I wouldn't say he's a very famous player. So it's that move in a weird way doesn't feel as big, even though it was their big move. Like if his name had just been a bigger name, even if he was the same player.
Or slightly worse.
I think that would, or slightly worse, yeah. If he just felt bigger, even though to them they're trying to be like, this guy's a big addition, it doesn't feel that big for the fan. And I do think you're just comparing yourself to the Rams. I think when you compare yourself to the Yankees, you just go, I want to operate like that. And you can push it. It doesn't always work. We get that. But people like when your team is aggressive. And I think older Niner fans, in our youth, they were always taking big swings. Always. And it just feels like now they're very prudent. They're just very like slow and steady wins the race, which is fine most of the time. Like the Packers, wouldn't you say, have operated like that the majority of our life. We got Favre, we got Rodgers, we'll, pick and choose here, and we're always going to be in the playoffs for the most part. And it's worked. If they had a team in their division operating like the Rams, I think Packer fans would get feisty fast. Like, What are we doing?
Yeah.
Because the Rams are always going to be on the opposite end. As long as Sean is there, like they'll never be a part of like trading Cooper Kupp for 2-1s, right? Well, we needed to reset our cap. Guy wore a shirt that said "fuck them picks." Like they're now taking pride in that.
Yeah, and it's the direct opposite of what the Niners are doing. Now, I should say the Niners did trade 3-1s for a quarterback last year, and they would have done the Stafford deal if they could have 2-1s in a swap. Right.
I do think if you just, in fairness to the side of the argument saying they're not doing enough, like every team, if they feel good about a quarterback, will make the draft day trade. You would say it's kind of hit or miss with the player trades. And the Niners did get pretty royally spurned by their biggest trade they've made with D Ford. Like that kind of blew up in their face over like the bigger picture. They traded for a guy, paid him a ton of money, and it failed. Because Trent Williams, I would say the D Ford is a good example of there's a small list of teams that would have done that, right? Might have been like under 5 for that player. Trent Williams for a 3rd-round pick. Does every team in the NFL make that trade? Like that was, to me, that's like a Jimmy Garoppolo. You get called on the phone, you make the trade. Like I don't not give you credit because Kyle's relationship is the reason it went there. But he said, remember Minnesota was like, we'll give you more, we'll pay him. And Trent's like, I'm not going to Minnesota.
Yeah.
They
Inside
literally
job.
offered him a better pick.
He'd stay retired.
Yes, he said, I will just quit.
So
it's basically Bill Walsh created in modern day economics, even though the salary cap wasn't there in the 80s, but money was growing rapidly. Buy low, sell high. Then Belichick basically copied that in the salary cap era. And it feels like the Niners under Kyle and John and Parag, like that trio, is kind of following that route.
Yeah, although I would say to me, it feels to me like they paid Trent, they're going to pay Debo, they're going to pay Nick, air quotes, they paid Kittle, kind of.
But Bill Walsh and Bill Belichick would have paid all those guys too, right? They flipped DeForest for a pick when they needed a little cap.
Yeah, but I don't know if to me, they feel even a little more financially aggressive than Bill Belichick.
I agree. I'm just saying, like, they are the aggressive version of that. They're closer to that than the Rams, right?
Yeah, but wouldn't you say most teams now are closer to that than the Rams? Most teams that try to do what the Rams have been doing, do it once or twice. It doesn't work. They fail. To me, what's amazing with the Rams is that
I think we've seen a lot of teams do with the Rams. I mean, Denver, the Raiders, Miami, a lot of teams are throwing picks at sweet players right now, right?
Well, Denver did it for Russ.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah, but what I'm saying is the Rams have done it year after year. The Rams keep chasing it by doing it more, and it's working. They've been to 2 Super Bowls. They won 1, and they double down on it. Because you do have to – there comes a time – I think you have to have the stomach for it. Because you do it a couple of times, it doesn't work. There comes a time where you either have to pivot and go, all right, we tried it this way. We're giving up all these picks. We have to go back the other way. and we pivot the other way.
When the Chiefs fall into that category a little bit, they did it with Frank Clark. They did it with some guys. Then they trade Tyreek to get some picks back.
To me, it's like teams try it. They get down the road. It maybe doesn't work. It blows up in their face. They go the other way. They give it up. The Rams keep getting credit on credit on credit, it feels like, and it's working for them. I'm giving them credit for it because they're 1-1 in Super Bowls. They won a championship. So it's working for them. And I think from the outside, everyone kind of watches and go, at some point, does it not work, or is the cap just going up forever? And now again, it's not even about what Bobby's making so much as it is.
But even those 2 seasons when they won one and lost one, they go to the playoffs every year. Right?
Yeah, it's working. It is working. Would you agree with me though that it feels like if a team does it, they can't do it for 5 or 6 or 7 years, and it feels like that's what the Rams are doing. That's where I feel like they're different than most other teams that do it or have tried it. Eventually, you just kind of go, oh, I mean, we're out of picks. It's not working. We got to change. And that's where winning the championship too, specifically winning the Super Bowl as opposed to just having a shot at it, kind of buys you more equity to just keep doing it.
But wouldn't you say a lot of their moves, while very aggressive, all like, it's going to work. Like Bobby Wagner's not going to suck.
Well, again, that's where these two things are different, right? Bobby's not necessarily, we'll see what the money is. Bobby's not necessarily about the money. Maybe it is. I don't know. Because if it's really 50, they would have just signed Vaughn. Or would they have?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not 50 yet.
Right. But you understand what I'm saying. Like, they lost Vaughn, they added Bobby. Bobby makes them better. Losing Vaughn hurts. But
it's like they're
almost
two
in two different
high-priced
categories.
options. Allen Robinson in that offense and Bobby Wagner behind those defensive linemen. I think everyone watching this, listening to this, all agree. Like, it'd be shocking if those guys not any good anymore.
Nothing left in the tank. Yeah,
they'll be fine.
Yeah. John, let's tell the people about butcherbox.com/hammer. Right now, you get free beef, 2 pounds of free ground beef in every box for the life of your membership. Right now, when you go to butcherbox.com/ham. How was Taco Tuesday the other night?
Oh, fantastic. I realized I didn't have any tortillas. I had some, but they were like weeks old. And, sometimes this is where, having a wife or, a live-in girlfriend, sometimes the details, I didn't Ziploc the bag. I kind of half-assed it, and it was open, and they were like rock hard. They were like a chip. It's like, you can't eat these. So I did beans with my beef, and I basically had like beef bowl. I mean, it was fantastic. And you can't beat it because you go to butcherbox.com/ham. Every box, whether it's free-range chicken, whether it's steaks, they got it all. Ribs, 8 to 14 pounds in this box. That then you get a knock on your door, delivered. It's in this big box with a bunch of these these frozen things that keep everything frozen inside the box. It's ice cold when you open it up. You put it in the freezer. Feeds up, one box, guy, feeds up to 24 people. So if just you, your wife, and maybe you got a kid, and the kid's eating baby food, that food will feed you, your wife, you, your buddy, whoever, for a week, right? I mean, that meat lasts a long time. And like you mentioned, butcherbox.com/ham gets you free ground beef for the life of your subscription.
Yep, never have to shop for ground beef again. Butcherbox.com/ham, 2 pounds of free ground beef in every order for the life of your membership. Go to butcherbox.com/ham to claim this deal. Whoop, whoop. All right, speaking of Bill Walsh. So this is the quote that got a lot of attention from Jed York the other day at league meetings. If Steve Young can sit on the bench for 4 seasons, like Steve Young's a Hall of Famer, if he's willing to do it and has the competitive drive to do it, why can't somebody else? When asked about his quarterback situation. Now, you said you heard Barrows talk about the context of that quote. Was there something that Barrows thought people need to know?
Yeah, I think he brought up previous situations, right? I think Rodgers. I don't know. I was kind of zoning in and out. He defended. Jed didn't just pull this out from nowhere. I think he kind of led him that way in the question. Though, when you watch Jed's audio, he felt very confident about talking about Steve Young. That's all to me that matter.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, all you got to do is read/listen to Steve Young's book. Steve Young was a starter at Brigham Young University for several years. And it was before we were alive, but once you listen to that book and then you realize, know some people on that team and the pride they take in that team, Kyle Whittingham, Andy Reid, those guys love, Kyle obviously now at Utah, so it's a little weird, but Andy's love of BYU. You know why? Because in the early 80s, you know what BYU was? It was fucking Alabama, guy. They were competing to win national championships and producing Heisman trophies. That was their starting quarterback for several years. Then he was the number 1 pick in the USFL, which these weird leagues sound weird to us, but at the time they were getting all these sweet players. He started in that league. Then he goes to Tampa Bay and starts for several years there. So Steve Young, while once the 49ers traded for him, he had played a lot of football, right, as a younger player. Like, started and played in college at the highest of levels. Like, how many programs in 1982 were probably better than BYU? Notre Dame?
Notre Dame would be one, yeah.
Wouldn't you say it's a pretty short list? Like,
yeah,
they could play with anybody.
By the time he got to the Niners, he was 26 years old, I think. 26, something like that. 27, maybe, almost. So he was in his prime, which is part of, I think, what made that situation so difficult. And like John said, we didn't cover it. We didn't live it, but we both read his book and have watched all his, the football life, all that kind of stuff. And the book goes deep into it. But it was a really tenuous. Other people could talk more firsthand about this than us, but it's pretty obvious when you read or watch anything about it. It was a pretty tenuous situation. And part of it was that Steve's clock was ticking, right? Steve was ready to win. He forced the trade he didn't force the trade from Tampa because they were going to they drafted Vinny Testaverde, but he prevented them from trading him to a bad team. They wanted to trade him to the St. Louis Cardinals, and he said, no, I'm not going there. And so Bill obviously gets him, and Bill thinks Joe is going to expire soon, and Joe, just the goat that he is, refuses to die. But that situation was not this. Here's the other, to me, the biggest part about this situation, though, Trey Lance isn't sitting for 4 years. Like, Jed York is just picking up the talking point from John Lynch and the talking point from Kyle Shanahan and kind of selling the same thing. Now, is he preparing for the possibility that nobody trades? Are they really willing to pay $27 million for Jimmy Garoppolo to be on their team and maybe still be their starter and stunt Trey's growth? Maybe. I think all he's saying is, let's not talk about it like it's such a stupid option. You and I don't like that option, but we'll dive into that more with Greg Pop on the next podcast, which you can hear coming out on Sunday. But yeah, this is not going to happen. And I guess also Jimmy Garoppolo is not Joe Montana. Like, that's the other part. It was Joe Montana that kept Steve Young on the bench. Joe Montana
won multiple Super Bowls by the time Steve Young had showed up. The other difference, guy, is, like you said, he sat for 4 years, which is impossible now. The variables are there was no salary cap, 1. 2, Trey Lance's greatest attribute is his contract before we learn he can play. And even if he becomes a great player, they're basically synonymous. You have a great young quarterback who's on a cheap contract. Like, that's part of the Justin Herbert package. The other thing, guy, is, and like you said, we'll talk about with Pop. If you told me right now Jimmy Garoppolo in a vacuum could be Trey Lance's backup, it's humanly impossible for them to find a better backup, right? Knows the offense, has won games, but it's not that simple.
Right.
It's just clearly there are.
That's a great point. That's a great point. You would love for Jimmy Garoppolo to be Trey Lance's backup. If that's all you knew about. He take a pay cut
at $10 million and was cool with it, for sure. The other thing, and one guy on social media, when I posted the clip, because I just kind of did like, this is 1,000,000% not the case, quoting Jed's deal. And it was like, you're just clickbaity. I'm like, well, 1, that's not even my video. That's NBC's. Like, I don't get credit on that. 2, you scroll through my tweets, so this is not a clickbait situation. Kind of, I get triggered when you call it clickbait. When it's
I
not
agree.
Clickbait.
I love it.
And last but not least, I didn't respond to this guy, but I thought about it. That my response, once we talked about it, would be, these young quarterbacks, name me a young quarterback who had to compete for his job that was drafted high in the last half decade. All the good ones, right?
Had to really compete, you're saying?
Because if you want to argue that, like, first year, whatever, unique circumstance, the second year, every single one of those guys, from Herbert to Mahomes to Allen, even back to Mariota and Jameis and Carson Wentz, and it's just their job. By the second year, because part of it, like, as you get older and you become the starter, it's always your job, right? Like, once you become Matt Ryan or Phillip Rivers or whatever, it's just your job. But early on, like the group last year, it just became Trevor Lawrence's job day 1, Zach Wilson's job day 1, Mac Jones's job day 1. Fields by about early October, it's just he's the Bears quarterback now, right? There's no like, what are they? When are you just going to make it Trey Lance's job? Are you going to wait? And I think that's where the old school guys, and Greg falls into that category of like competition. And it's like, I get it. No one disputes that like being pushed can't make you better. But in 2022 with his contract, like eventually, and I keep going back to the poker analogy, like you just got to put your chips on him. And whether it succeeds or fails, no one knows. I don't know. You don't know. Kyle doesn't know. Trey Lance doesn't fucking know. But you got to see, and the only way to see is like more than likely, even if what if Jimmy said, listen, I don't think he would say this, but I'll go from 26 or 7 or 25 because his cap hit's different than how much he makes. So it's a little weird. I think his cap hit's 25. He makes 27. But it's irrelevant. You know, the Niners are, do you see today that they did the updated cap space? Niners are second like last. They have like 1.5 million. They couldn't even sign. Well, they don't have a first-round pick, so they probably could sign all their draft picks. But they are near the bottom, and they don't have any space. Well, yeah, I mean, they have a guy that is not going to be their starting quarterback who makes a large chunk. Because if I took that away right away and gave you $25 million, they would shoot up the rankings. So it's a little jaded. But to me, if he would make $10 million, I still think that's pretty weird. Because what if Trey, like, kind of weird start at the beginning, 2-2, not just from the outside, because I don't think anyone would care and be like, just keep going with them. But what about some of the players? Like if you're George Kittle, like put Jimmy in there, right?
Yeah, $10 million's not backup money, even though you could have a backup making $10 million, right? It's not starter money.
Even if he went to $5 million, if he's around, no matter what Trey does, if it's not good, people are like, well, just throw Jimmy in there then.
Well,
it'd be a crutch for Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You look back at what Miami's situation was like with Tua and Fitz. I mean, I guess it was better for the organization to play Fitz. It wasn't better for Tua. Now, part of that
he
might
was
be
injured.
Tua might
That
not
was
be
his
good
first
enough.
year.
Yeah,
they got rid of Fitz right by the second
they
year.
They pulled Tua at one point and put Fitz back in, right?
Oh, you mean but I think Kyle would do it like that.
Yeah, he might. That's what I'm saying. So I agree. My point is I'm agreeing with you, just having him around. It's totally dependent on what is the coach's stomach for development. Because at some point you got to do it. Is it forced on you or do you choose it? You know, in the long run, it's like working out. Like I don't like working out necessarily, but you do it because in the long run you hope it pays off. So you suffer a little now, and later you get the benefits of it. And that's, you know, how much are you willing to suffer? And this is where I always go back to the RG3 year with Kyle. Part of being a good coach is, can you reduce the suffering? Can you get to a point where you enjoy the working out? Do you learn some breathing techniques or change your mental attitude or whatever? And can you win? Can you do enough? Can you make up for it in other ways with other players, with your run game, with your receivers? Can you do it enough that you can win and develop at the same time? Like that's the ideal. A lot of that's team development.
You don't fail. You just learn.
Win or lose, we booze.
Win or lose, we booze. Win or lose, we booze, or you don't fail, we learn. They both work on this case, but there is no way to improve as a quarterback without throwing some picks. Because what happens once you throw a pick? You learn, like, I can't do that against that coverage with that play. And the only way he figures that out is, like, by playing. So, I saw a lot of people surmising that maybe Jed was just saying that to help also prop up. Like, I don't think that's the case. I just think it's Jed talking.
I think it's partly that. I think in his mind, he's like, we're all three of us are aligned. Yeah. But I also think we should be open to the possibility and the likelihood that they've had a conversation. Because if you're Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, you've had to have at least a conversation with Jed. Jed, if it came down to it, would you be willing to pay Jimmy Garoppolo $25 million if me, the football expert, said, I want to carry Jimmy on this team? And I think Jed's kind of saying, I'm prepared to do that if that's what the guys want to do.
And to me, that I see a lot of people kind of giving them – I would give Jed zero credit because this is all monopoly money. unless you were like, we were going to use that money to do this and we knew it, then it's like, well, then you should do that. Right. But I think we all come to an agreement they weren't going to use that money to sign other players.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing you never know if like a trade comes out of nowhere and you could trade a second-round pick for a guy like Khalil Mack or something. But to me, like Jed paying him $25 million or pocketing that money means fucking nothing to me, you, or anybody, and really not much to Jed. These are all, like, as crazy as it sounds, $25 million would change probably every person listening to this' lives, including me and you. To Jed, these are all line items on his operation, right?
Well, it's not money out of it's money out of his pocket, but it's not necessarily money he notices is out of his pocket.
Yes, and it's really not out of his.
It's not even out of his pocket. Yeah, that's right.
You know, so it's out. Like he'll get a media rights check, and they just funnel it all back in. So you get no credit for doing that. The thing that we question is like the team building aspect, and it's just pretty a slippery slope, risky. There's a reason that, for example, Cam Newton wasn't going to be their backup. They cut him, right? All in on Mac Jones. Once they went Sam Bradford, all in on Carson Wentz. Once Tyrod Taylor, like their backups are just Chase Daniel, who's a clipboard holder. Like you just pivot hard, right? Chad Henne, what did Veach want? I just want a married guy around my young Patrick Mahomes. It's pretty, like there's a tried and true formula now in the modern day NFL. In the Bill Parcells, Bill Walsh, Mike Ditka days, society, we smoked in planes in the mid-'80s, right? Gay people couldn't get married. Fucking things are different. Like it's a different world now. It just is. So to me, you can't. There's nothing that Steve Young and Joe Montana have in common with this situation beside they throw a football. Because I would say the business is completely different. There wasn't a salary cap.
Well, John, and also again, I think back to your original point on Steve. They were both of them much more established players. Right, like even if everything was exactly the same then, except for the individual people, it still wouldn't be a similar situation. Joe Montana was a champ, an MVP and a champ. And Steve Young was an established NFL prospect who just the Niners had control of. Prospect is even calling is too little. He was better than that when he played. He was
what's weird is that it went from Steve Young, like at the end of the day, the Niners kind of got to buy low on Steve Young, right?
Yeah.
I do wonder, and they wouldn't do this, but like what Trey Lance's value has gone down a little bit, right? You've already wasted a year of his contract. His film didn't blow anyone out. Now you could still trade him. You wouldn't get 3 1s back.
Would you get 2 1s?
There would be enough teams that like him.
Here's my question. Would the team drafting second trade you the second for him, or would they draft Malik Willis? Like, that's part of what you're up against now, right?
Yeah. Like, would the Steelers give you their next 2 1s for Trey Lance? Probably, right?
Maybe.
Assuming they liked him.
Yeah.
But that's my point. Like, until he starts playing, his value starts diminishing. Like, it was like Jordan Love. They got, and then we see him play one time. It's like, could you even get a third for him? Like, things change fast.
So fast. Yep. I do want to call attention to one other thing that Jed said about last year, which I thought was I was glad to hear him say this. Quote, we could have very easily not made the playoffs. We could have very easily not come back in the last game of the season. That's true. They could have. This is what I say when we talk about the night. Here is what they did with Jimmy. Well, here's what almost happened with Jimmy too. So, but anyway. Yeah. All right. Bruce Arians retired suddenly, and there's a lot of theories about it. Is something fishy going on? Is the NFC easier or harder or the same without Arians on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? These are all parts of that conversation, but I was pretty stunned by that news. Speaking of, by the way, the man who not invented, but lives by that credo, win or lose, we booze.
No risk it for the biscuit or something?
Risk it for the biscuit, yeah.
To me, it's the timing of it. The last time someone didn't, stepped away, fired, whatever, was Jimmy Johnson at the owners' meetings. Like this, the timing.
Oh, I didn't know that happened at the owners' meetings.
Yeah, so it's unheard of, right? There is precedent, but you could almost say in modern football it's unprecedented. That's 93, 94. That's a long time ago now. That's almost 30. 94. We're 2 years away from that being 30 years ago.
Yeah, and this is not. We were closer to the season when Chuck Pagano had to step away for cancer treatment, right? Or was that during the season?
That might have been during either fall camp or maybe even like after week 1, because he only coached like 11 or 12 of the games. Chuck did come back.
That's
I think,
right.
at the end.
Yeah. Yep.
If I remember correctly, but
Bruce didn't coach 16 games that year. You're right.
yeah.
Yeah. So there've been a lot of theories. Did Tom force him out? Did he know he was going to retire the whole time and just stayed on to try and attract free agents? Did something health-wise happen? There was this, I heard one NFL reporter say that we talked about Bruce wasn't in the photo the other day. Bruce left the owners' meetings under the weather, quote unquote. Now, maybe that was just cover and he was feeling fine, or he wasn't feeling well. Maybe it had nothing to do with it. Maybe he wanted to make sure he could hand off the team to the assistant that he wanted to hand it off to. But the reason I don't buy that one is I think Jason Light.
Wouldn't they have done that January 5th?
Yeah, they could have done that. I think Jason Light, him and Bruce were. You told me you saw Jason Light crying at the press conference.
Well, I was in the car listening. I don't think he was quite in tears, but you could tell like this guy changed the way he's viewed, right?
I was listening to. I told you about this earlier. Thomas Dimitrov's podcast which just launched, where he drives around in a RV and interviews GMs, and Jason Light was his first guest. Like, they go back from the New England days. Jason Light had a good comment too. He's like, it's kind of crazy. Me and Tom Brady share Tom's first ring because he was a scout with the Patriots, and he didn't say last ring, but then this next ring. But he actually said he thinks the biggest thing he did for the Bucs was not getting Tom, but it was talking Bruce out of retirement. So my point is, like, I think they're pretty aligned organizationally. Now, would they,
remember their quarterback threw like 31 picks and they still almost went 500 the year before Tom showed up. Like, they were
like, Bruce is a good football coach. I think it's gone too far the other way because of Tom, that Bruce just does nothing. And I think Bruce's team got a little wacky and it's very different than what Tom's used to, but Bruce is a good football coach.
I think he's a weathered 69. Like, you look at Pete, he looks young. Bruce he had a health scare before when he went to CBS. I just look at the Bucs no differently. Like, them and the Rams are the two best teams in the NFC now that Devontae's gone, until we know what Trey Lance is doing. It's just hard to feel as good. Though you look at the win-loss. I saw the win-loss numbers came out from one book. Raiders lowest in the AFC West by a wide margin. Like,
you want to bet the over?
Half. To me, the Rams and the Bucs should both be around 11.5. And I still view the Bucs as probably a 13-win team, guy.
Yeah, I think if they'd given the job to Byron Leftwich, you could say, well, we don't know how this is going to go. But Todd Bowles got the job, and he's still going to call defense. So a guy who's been a head coach before, in the worst of circumstances. I mean, being the Jets coach probably prepares you for anything. If they had hired Byron, I'd look at it a little differently, just because he's not been a head coach before.
A lot of pressure on a big time team. Now, I think part of the reason you do this is you just let Byron and Tom kind of run it. Todd doesn't have to do anything with the offense, right?
Yeah.
He kind of lets Tom police the locker room. I mean, they got a pretty good setup to take over. Todd Bowles' bad record, the Jets, going to look a lot better year one here. And who knows, maybe Todd's, Bruce is a very aggressive, outspoken guy. I worked with Todd with the Eagles. He's much more low-key. He's not really a screamer and a yeller. I would compare him. I mean, different personalities, probably a little more negative than Andy. But, Andy's not a screamer and a yeller. He's just, like, even I've heard Jeff Schwartz say, like, after losses on Monday, some teams, you're like, oh, my God, this is going to be brutal. Andy's like, we'll get them next week. Go in, break your film with your position coach. See you guys at lunch. It's a more upbeat environment. Because part of it is just not screaming at people all the time. And even that's one thing Bruce really hangs his hat on. Like, I'm dog cussing you. I'll dog cuss anybody.
Dog cuss.
I'm not saying Todd won't get on people's asses, because it's ultimately coaching football. I do think it's just going to be a little different environment there. Todd's viewed as like I would say non-head coach. It was like Zimmer, obviously Bill. But, I mean, clearly he's one of the best defensive minds in the league. How good has their defense been these last couple of years?
Very good.
They won the Super Bowl. One thing, Joel Glazer must be the son of the dad.
Yeah.
But he sounds, he's probably 50 years old. Was like, obviously, I don't want to say Todd won us the Super Bowl, but I mean, what was the defining attribute of the Chiefs-Bucs Super Bowl? He kicked the shit out of Mahomes. I mean, that was just a dominant force of defense.
Question, I've not heard anybody talk about this, and I had not thought about it till just now, but maybe someone else is. Do you view this as Tom Brady's last year?
No.
I don't either. I think when a guy comes out of retirement, sometimes it's assumed like, okay, here's his farewell tour.
Well, he did say 45, right?
And he's almost 45, but he didn't say, I'm going to retire at 45. He just said, I want to play till I'm 45. But it feels like the Tom Brady retirement. Do you remember when Tom Brady, the joke on the internet, I'm old enough to remember when Tom Brady was retired?
What he said,
but I don't,
like a 2-year extension after this year?
Well, I don't know. I don't assume that Tom is one and done.
I don't either. At least Tampa's interesting still.
Matt Rule is the longest tenured coach in the NFC South.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta 1 year, DA,
Bowl.
and this guy brand new.
NFC South is just, I mean, what a platter for Tom. How could Tom Brady walk away from that division? You know, are you kidding? To go play the NFC West?
And everyone's always talking about the SC. You kind of get to SEC, get to fly under the radar a little bit in a weird way.
God,
I bet he thinks like, God, this is way more chill than up there in the Northeast.
I wonder, do you think Leftwich maybe knew, and that's why he didn't? I don't know the Jag. That's why he could be so kind of forceful with the Jags. Like, hey, I'm only doing it my way if I can come there. I wonder if he had some idea.
You know, he's rich because he played. I think when you have a little money, you're less likely to just do something you don't want to do. Because I think it's pretty real. He said, like, I'd be interested in your job, but I'm not working for Trent Baalke.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not dead set on, like, this has been my one shot, like every coach that was making $20,000 8 years ago, like, that was like, I'm actually making less now than I was 10 years ago, right? I'm rich.
Like D'Amico.
I do think that, I think if you played in the NFL and then you get close, you can have pretty unique perspective because you go, I've been in a place that was bad and good as a player. And it's like, I got to be careful as a coach.
Yeah.
And you just have the money. That's the other thing. Even if you just got $5 million in the bank, like some coaches, like first time you make $500,000, they're like, I'm so rich. D'Amico signed like a $25 million signing bonus when he signed his contract extension with the Houston Texans in like 2008.
Was there anything else on that subject? No, I don't think so. Do you have anything else on that?
No.
Okay. We thought we'd do some mailbag. What do you think?
I want to see this 3-star.
The 3-star? Okay. Well, I don't have the 3. I'll get to the 3-star second.
Yeah.
Justin says, 5-star mailbag question. The thought of Khalil Mack in powder blue makes me puke. But who do you guys think's a better player right now? Khalil Mack or Chandler Jones? Well, I mean, Chandler Jones, from an age perspective, just turned 32. Khalil Mack, I thought they had the same birthday for a second. Khalil Mack was born on February 22nd, and Chandler Jones was born on February 27th. So Chandler's almost exactly a year older.
I think it's a difficult one to truly answer because Khalil Mack it looked like going to have a 15-sack season. He had 6 sacks in 7 games and looked awesome, but then he got injured. Now Chandler had double-digit sacks, but he had the 5 in 1 game. That's a little weird.
And he's kind of had the reverse of Khalil, who played a full season 2 years ago and 7 games last year. Chandler played a full game this year, but 5 games the year before that.
Yeah, so both have had pretty major injuries that knocked him out of a season. I think either one, I mean, both of them on any given game can dominate. I would lean Khalil Mack, but I'm not like anti-Chandler Jones. I mean, in my experience watching him, definitely in all the Niner games over the last 3 or 4 years, he's typically the best player on the field. It felt like a lot of the time, doesn't it? Like he was unblockable some games. Again, I'm a little biased just because I've always loved Khalil Mack, but I also think that the incentive of both teams with both guys is pretty unique. I mean, Brandon Staley, I think, views Khalil Mack as the guy that kind of put him on the map as an assistant coach working with him in Chicago. And then I think Ziegler and Josh view Chandler Jones. I saw a clip. I don't know if Josh was said at the combine, but just like how excited he was knowing the guy. Him and Ziegler were around him as a younger player in New England. So both teams are, I would say, all in, right? The Chargers traded for a guy making a lot of money. The Raiders signed this guy making a lot of money. They're going to want both these two guys to like be Pro Bowl level. Obviously, anytime you trade or sign a guy, but I'm just saying like these guys have Pro Bowl level caliber talent. The head coach on both teams knows the player. In Chargers, the guy actually coaches defense too. Josh and Ziegler. It wouldn't shock me if both of them were to go to the Pro Bowl.
I would, if you told me you could have one of them this year, I would lean Chandler just because of the foot injury with Khalil. That would scare me a little bit.
That's fair.
Underrated stat though. 33 forced fumbles for Chandler Jones in his career. 23 forced fumbles for Khalil Mack. I mean, both those numbers are just like we're talking about multiple 5-year. Chandler Jones had a year. Chandler Jones had forced 8 fumbles in 2019.
Who's got more career sacks? Obviously, Chandler's been in the league a little.
107.5 for Chandler and 76.5 for Khalil.
Damn.
In 8 years for Khalil, in 10 years, Chandler's played 2 more seasons. So what is that? How many more sacks? 20. Yeah, I mean, 31 more sacks in 2 years. Whoosh. Now, remember, Khalil got 4 his rookie year. Everyone was like, can he?
He didn't know any moves.
No, he was good at run stuffing.
Yeah, he just ran right through people.
Next up, it's from Julian. With all the action going on in the AFC and Watson now back to the Browns, we're going to need that 7 seed back from the NFC. LFG Raiders getting Devontae Adams. Derek isn't going anywhere. Headline, AFC is the better conference. No debate. I mean, right now the AFC is much deeper.
Who's debating?
NFC just won the Super Bowl, but no, it's not a debate. I'm just saying. I agree with that. Derek isn't going anywhere. I also agree with that. I expect Derek to take a team-friendly contract at some point, whatever that means. On the stream, do you think Carr would take $35 million a year? I think we'll be in that range. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be 40.
I agree. I think Raiders are really like piggybacking. Now they were a playoff team last year, but like they're part of the AFC hierarchy. Like we're way better with the group. It's like let's two playoff bursts in 20 years. Let's see. But on paper, I'll say this over and over. There's going to be a team. I don't think it's the Chiefs. Their over-under was like 10.5. That Vegas still thinks they're going to be good. Between the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Raiders, that is just going to go 9-8 and miss the playoffs. And it's going to feel like ultimately it could just be like 2 crazy losses, like where the guy fumbled on the last second and a missed field goal off the pylon. It's where you like, we easily could have been 11-6, but you're 9-8, and it's going to feel like the most how's it possible that all 4 teams win 10 games? It's not. Just do the math.
Not. Yeah.
And I'm not saying I think it's going to be the Raiders necessarily, but it's going to be one of those 3 teams.
It says Wood Gravy Reviews. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Hampod Review. 5 stars. My question is, what Taylor Swift song would you use to describe Derek Carr and Devontae Adams? My answer is Love Story. The first line of the song is, we were both young when I first saw you.
I'm in.
So I'm going with that. I don't know which one's Romeo and which one's Juliet, but Aaron Rodgers is definitely Juliet's dad. Stay away from Juliet. Were you going to Google? Did you have something else in mind?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know that many Taylor Swift songs. The 2 that come to my mind, I like December. It's just a great song. But it's like I don't know if that parallels back to December. In college, the couple times they played December, they probably didn't do that well because their season ended in November. I really like Red, but I don't know. I was trying to look up the lyrics, but those would be like, I'm with you.
Taylor's version?
Yeah, I was going to go, I was thinking Party All the Time, but that's Miley, or Party in the USA.
Party in the USA.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Red, first line of Red, loving him is like driving a new Maserati down a dead-end street. What did Devontae say the other day? He's feeling
Ferrari-ish.
Ferrari-ish.
What did Derek say? If he came to the Raiders, he'd buy him a car?
Yeah.
Is that what Devontae was referring
That's what
to?
Devontae was referring to, yeah.
Was he asked that question to Derek a couple years ago if he came as a free agent? Was that what they were?
I don't know.
Had
All
to
I
be.
saw was just that. I didn't watch whatever the whole context of it was.
There are going to be some fun Instagram stories of Devontae, Kevin Na, and Derek playing a lot of golf this summer, I bet, in Vegas.
Next up, John, here's our 3-star. This is from Dave Ochocinco. He says 3 stars, volume. This is my favorite podcast of all time. But lately, I've been frustrated with the audio levels. The volume at which I can actually hear and understand Middlekauff hurts my ears when the guy talks. I found myself turning the volume up or down depending on who's talking. Not sure if it's because Guy is talking closer to the mic than Middlekauff or what the deal is. I'll happily change this to a 5-star review once this is addressed because you guys really are the best and bring a lot of joy to my life. So, a couple things.
You do any recon on this? Because whenever I've listened, it sounds pretty normal.
There are times where it's varied. We do something in the post editing that's supposed to make our levels the same. So, but there are definitely times where, especially like on the YouTube, where it's harder to preview the audio than on the podcast, where sometimes it can be a little off. And there are spots where it's, it doesn't always. So, I would always say this, if there's something, especially with the audio or the video quality or something that you think sucks or should be better, just hit us up and we will try. We want to know if you're not having a good user experience, John, as people like to say now.
We take a lot of pride in the details.
The user experience.
A lot of pride. We're consumer friendly.
I listen to it. I will listen to the podcast all the time just to hear the sound of our voices.
Remember when Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura, and he does the playing glass?
Yeah. He also does in what's it called, where they go to Dumb and Dumber, where he's like, you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
This guy said, I've noticed it. I'm a little quieter than you.
Today, John, Max,
I've noticed being a little higher. I do probably mess with my audio settings just randomly here and there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've used different streaming softwares before. The last one we used was better in some ways than what we use now.
You use a little Zoom thing, don't you?
No. But what I mean is we used to use a different streaming software, and that let us really hone the levels in. This one doesn't.
What's your input level? What's your input level right now? Mine's at 70.
Yeah, I'm.
Can you tell?
Yeah, 63.
So we're in the same ball. I was at 66. I just turned it up a little.
But sometimes you're louder, sometimes you're quieter. I think it's guys closer to the mic sometimes. Yeah, that's probably true. We have different microphones. That's the other thing. Maybe we should get the same microphone.
I think we have pretty similar mics though, right?
Yeah, this one it does like a lot. Grant Yamasaki gave me this one back at 95.7.
Whatever happened to Grant Yamasaki?
He's in SAC. Got a kid doing well. Big Gonzaga fan. But this is a good. I mean, yeah, they look similar. I don't know, but they are not exactly the same, so that can create an issue.
Did Yamasaki go to Gonzaga?
Good question. I don't remember that part, but if he's
inside,
he can update
inside
us.
radio. Break down Woj and Schefter getting $10 million apiece.
Is that what they got? $10 million apiece?
That's what the internet streets were saying.
Did you see Greg Gumbel's quotes?
You mean the guy, HBO guy?
No, that's Bryant. Greg, TBS, like CBS.
Oh, like when I watch
Studio
football.
host.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
He just said,
are they brothers?
Yeah, Gumble to Gumble. You don't remember that whole thing? It was an old Family Guy. But he basically said like nobody turns on a game for the broadcaster. Talking about like these guys making like $17 million. He said, but I'll turn a game off because of the broadcaster. I thought it was a good line.
Very true. I think muting, like sometimes I'll just like last night I had the Warrior game muted on ESPN in my room and just had some like audio from the phone going. Like podcast.
Like a podcast, yeah.
Yeah. But I'll say this, like when the Warriors-Suns game in the fourth quarter, the last couple minutes got really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of ready to go to bed. I mean, it was like 9 o'clock. I sound like I'm 70. I turned it up. I was like, I wanted to kind of embrace the game.
It was, who's actually
it was the best NBA game I've seen.
Richard Jefferson's entertaining.
He was good, yeah. Well, because he was like talking shit about himself and like.
Well, my barber yesterday said to me, he's like, "Isn't it bullshit that the Warriors lost that championship because of Draymond getting suspended?" So we were talking about it, and then last night, Pash says, "Did you hear this last night?"
Yeah.
Pash is like, don't you hate it when people say you guys only won that championship because Draymond got suspended? And he's like, no, because it's true. And I tell Draymond about it all the time. That was good.
He must have taken a lot of heat from people in Cleveland because he tweeted again, like, guys, it did not hurt us that Draymond went away. Right?
I don't understand this. Like, people get caught up in this winning the championship. Like, who cares how lucky? It doesn't matter if their best player got it. Like, I don't want to win it that way. You got the ring. Like, that's all that matters. You got the ring.
That one, though, I give him credit. Like, you do not win it because he gets suspended, and obviously it cost Game 5. Remember, wasn't Draymond watching the parking lot with Bob Myers? Wasn't that the thing or something?
No.
Marshawn's house?
At the A's game.
Oh, that's
in
what
the
it was.
booth.
That's what it was. Yeah,
in the suite.
That's what it was.
Right across.
So then they go 3-2, and then they obviously you get a home game. The place is nuts. They win that game. And then Game 7. In fairness, Game 7, Draymond had the greatest game of his career. He scored like 35 points.
Were you at that game?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Girl at the time took me. Thank you, Kaylin. It's fun. Great seats.
Yeah, I
underrated a lot of Cavs fans at the game. Like, you could tell, like, you talk about the Eric Church moment. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of flew in for what they thought could be a magical moment, and it was worth it.
I would imagine that would be, if you're a Duke fan, beating Carolina this week, or vice versa, kind of.
Well, before we
hopped
on,
that rivalry was so good. God, that was back when teams hated each other.
I saw on Twitter that whatever. Are they playing? They must be playing in where the Saints play, right? The Superdome?
Yeah.
Is that where the Final Four is?
Yeah.
Which always gets a little weird, right? In the Final Four, where there's that extra space and the coaches are below. I think it can throw off.
Oh, yeah. I kind of like that.
Yeah. I don't know if that's how they're doing it here. I would imagine. When the guys are. I like it. I don't like it when no one can hit a shot the first 5 minutes. But they say every ticket's been accounted for, 71-2 or whatever.
I went to the Final Four in 2013 in Atlanta. Same deal. Like, it's a football stadium.
Where the Falcons used to play, or the new one?
No, old one.
Was it sweet the way they did that?
I mean, I was watching the game with binoculars.
How high up were you?
As high up as you could be. It's a football stadium and it's a basketball court. Like, it's basketball court, a lot smaller.
Did they put you in a seat or they put you on like a desk? Like a media booth?
Yeah. It was like a media seat way up.
Sucked though.
I mean, it was cool being there, but it was
but in terms of you couldn't. It was really high.
I loved talking to Howie Schwab after the game and interviewing Dickie V. That was cool.
Howie Schwab, knew his shit.
Howie Schwab. I used to love the Schwab.
Didn't Peyton Siva get Nance's tie?
I was right there. Nance had his arm around his new wife. They were watching the one shot.
I saw Big Cat say that, and he's right. Can Jim do this if Coach K wins it? Give his tie to Coach K. Or is that like Coach K not going to take his tie?
Well, he gives it as Peyton Siva. I asked Peyton Siva about it, John. I was right there. I saw it happen. I was the only person that saw it. I feel like I broke the story that Jim Nance does this, but then Nance has said it other places. And I asked Peyton Siva, what's the deal? Peyton Siva had the Vineyard Vines like crumpled up in his locker. And he said that Nance says he gives it to like his favorite senior. I don't know if it has to be a senior, but like veteran player. What's his call going to be if Coach K wins it all? Okay.
Well, I actually just thinking of Nance because the Tiger thing, I don't think he's made it official yet, but the night, what do you think about the 19 call? A return to glory?
I thought mine was better.
I agree. I actually don't think the return to glory. I don't think the return to glory really flowed that well. Yeah. But I think he honestly, you're probably a little nervous going into, like, it's a big deal, right? I do think, like Tiger winning that 19 Masters, for Jim, if Coach K wins this Final Four game, it would be in your head a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was calling that thing for Intel VR. I think 300 people saw it, and my heart was pounding out of my chest. Now, I'll say this for Jim. In that moment, Tiger lined up a putt, you remember this, right before that and missed it.
Because he had to tap in to win it, yeah.
So you kind of build it up, and then he doesn't do it, so then you got to wait again.
Because you're ready, but you're like, 2 putt to win,
Yeah. And Jim, Jim never overdoes it. I shouldn't say never. I think he's always errs on the side of just like I'm going to keep it simple.
Did Tiger 2-putt win on yours?
Yeah, if Tiger missed probably a 10-footer or an 8-footer or something.
Because he was up by a couple going into hole 18 on
he was cruising.
Right? Yeah.
He was cruising. So
I still think that in the last decade plus, that picture, sports picture, not the 19 Masters, but the 18 Tour Championship, where it just all hell broke loose. It happened a little with Phil at Kiowa, when everyone was falling.
Yeah,
I'd say Tiger was 4x that, and it was, and when the far back where it's like coming from the clubhouse, and I swear, what do you think? 80 deep? I mean, 80 by 8. I mean, it was enormous.
It's a wide fairway. It's a long fairway.
That visual is so sweet of Tiger walking back or walking down the fairway to win.
I think what that one has that 19 doesn't is that Tiger had been gone.
Yeah.
Now,
but he had been coming back a little bit, right?
Well,
he
had to qualify for that event. I mean, so clearly he played well because he had to qualify for the FedEx Cup. But
even though he didn't win the $10 million, right?
No, that was the last year that he didn't. Justin Rose won the $10 million.
Yeah, but he won the tournament.
Earlier that round, Justin Rose had celebrated on that green. $10 million. It's so weird.
They changed it after that.
Every year I have to remind I like the FedEx Cup though, but
do you think anyone gives a shit that Tiger the money? Like, do you think anyone knows the Justin Rose won the money?
Now, no. At the time, no one even understood the rules. If Tiger plays, if we get Tiger plays at the same time that we get Duke Carolina, I wish we could Duke Carolina. By the way, I just saw this stat. Someone texted me this because the Stanford and UConn play in the women's Final Four on Friday night. So Tara Vanderveer, Gino Ariema. Do you know how many games above 500 Gino Ariema is?
Not trying to be an asshole or anything. The guy's an incredible coach. It shouldn't be as easy. I saw he's been to the Final Four 22 times in 37 years. Like what's Coach K got? 8?
Yeah, 5 championships for Coach K.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot. 5's a lot. I mean, part of it
22 and 37. I mean, we're talking over every other year he's making the Final Four.
It's ridiculous.
Basically.
UConn didn't lose a league game for the 8 years they were in the AAC. But guess how many games over 500 Gino Ariema is?
I guess Coach K's been to 13 Final Fours, so
that's pretty damn good.
How long has he been coaching? 25 years?
I mean, his first championship was 95, so I think like 89 maybe, or 87, 88.
I mean, do women play similar schedules?
Yeah, they play 33 games plus a postseason. 30,
10, 60, 600, 900, I'd say 750 games over 500.
Yeah, I mean, 999 games over 500. They go because they were going 33-1 every year or some shit.
Well, what would you guess Coach K's record? He's up there too. How many games above 500?
Coach K, they're both in the top. They're near each other in wins, aren't they?
Coach K's got 1,202. What does Gino got?
I don't know. I have to look.
Coach K is 835 over 500.
Wow.
Do you know Coach K's record? It looks pretty incredible when you're just looking at it. 1,202 and 367.
That's outrageous.
Guy, his tournament record. Now it does okay, never mind. It factors in the ACC tournament too. But just so ACC, NIT, NCAA, which to me is a little weird, but it's factoring it all in. Actually, never mind. His NCAA tournament record is 101 and 30. That's pretty fucking remarkable.
That means you're winning 3 games, 3 games
His
a tournament.
ACC tournament record is 65 and 22. Kind of mails it in the NIT. He's 2-2.
Yeah, Duke doesn't want to be in the NIT. I can't. When was the last time they were in the NIT? Like Wojo? Did they make Wojo play in the NIT one year?
Yeah, it's probably been a while.
Like
it feels like he would have had an NIT. DeMarcus Nelson type team. They would have been NIT bound.
I mean, Coach, that record is outrageous. Like, what's Calipari's record?
I mean, can't even be. I was going to go to Izzo.
Calipari, Calipari's 768 and 239.
One thing is when you're really good in college basketball, you just win a lot, right? I bet if you go to what's Nick Saban's college record? It's probably.
Yeah, Calipari also was just, Calipari took after he left UMass to coach the Nets, right? So he was out of college basketball for 4 years.
And he went back to Memphis, started kicking ass, and then he went to Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, he's taken 3 teams to the Final Four. Now, 2 of those got vacated, but it still happened. Like Memphis, I don't think the Memphis and UMass one counts anymore, right?
Yeah.
I count them.
Yeah, those two are not counted, but the 4 with Kentucky count.
Nothing like vacating it. It's like, no, that happened.
Reggie Bush's Heisman.
People should talk about like divorces like that. Yeah, we just vacated our marriage. Didn't exist. No, you were married for 10 years. You have 2 children. Like, no, it did not happen. No, it's like, I saw them. They lost in the Final Four to Kansas. I watched the game. Marlo Chalmers. Like, we all witnessed it. It's like, oh, Chris Webber, the timeout, vacate. No, he called the timeout. Like, they were in the Final Four. Like,
I told you the other day in the glow of Chris Rock and Will Smith, I watched the Norm Macdonald's SB 8-minute monologue, and he's like, Charles Woodson's here. He had an incredible year. He won the Heisman, and Charles, nobody can take that away from you unless you kill your ex-wife and a waiter. And the whole place is like, King Griffey Jr. is like, whoa, this is OJ. This is prime OJ time.
And he loved a good OJ topic. Now, like, to me, okay, like, that is just, if you want to say, like, someone murdered someone. But remember when they took away Reggie's Heisman? It was like, guys, we all watched Reggie. He was, like, the greatest college player we've ever seen. Like, it happened.
Like, you can send me the box with the return label. I'm not pulling the Heisman out of my trophy room and sending it back to you.
Didn't they give it back to him?
Did they?
Or they just reinstated him to the NCAA type deal?
Yeah, I don't know if they gave it back to him. They just made it. Remember when he was still banned, but he was there with Fox and he hugged the USC running back in the back of the end zone? That was pretty cool.
That's fucked up.
It is.
Like, no one's taking away Fred Taylor, anyone taking away his records?
And at this point, they can't even. They got too many complaints piling up. The voicemail is full at the
honestly, it kind of bothers me as someone who just believes there's just rampant cheating at the highest level, especially in the South. You see Penny Hardaway gets nailed. It's like, I'm sure he's cheating, but you just tell, like, how does Coach K too, but Calipari never gets in any trouble, but Memphis is always getting in trouble?
Well, it's just about knowing what you're doing.
I guess Calipari did get in trouble in Memphis, but why do they always just nail Memphis? See, that would be a Tark thing. Like, why are they just picking on Memphis?
They're so mad. What was Tark's line? They're so mad at whoever it was that they took it out on Fullerton.
Yes, they're so mad at Kentucky, they suspended Cleveland State. Or something like that.
All right. Thanks for hanging with us. Greg Papa, fantastic conversation coming up on Sunday's podcast. We hope you'll check that out. As always, we appreciate you guys. Check out Buck Mason down there in the description. Great stuff. I'm wearing double Buck right now, T-shirt and hoodie. And they have crew necks too. Actually, they got a good-looking crew neck. Yeah. I've watched this Buck Mason T-shirt. I've washed several times since I got it. The color looks good. The neck is strong. So big fan.
When I got my set of like 4 T-shirts, I just put them in the wash right away. Because it's going to happen, and just they don't shrink. They were the exact same. They fit perfectly. Very impressed.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging.